Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you might be watching this on this extremely wonderful planet we live on. Today, not so sure, not a lot of things. I want to talk a bit about grief and responsibility and where that goes. There's like experiences we all have and where that can run with that. So, basically, for my mind, and remember this is all my opinion, and you'll have yours and go for it. Happy for you to share it with me in the below. And while we're on that below thing, let's do the like and share and things. Always do it on the way in. Don't like it, take it on the way out. Sort of makes everyone feel good. And then those of us who try and play on YouFace, TikTok, Insta, Bookgram thing, we can get some sort of appreciation from the 4 people I know who look at my videos. And if you're one of them, thank you. Now, the rest of you just like it anyway, because I want you to be one of those 4, 5, 10. Anywho, moving on. Grief, right? For the way I see grief, there's 2 types of grief. Obviously, the most common grief that we are all going to experience, and I doubt that anyone is going to be shared from this type of grief, and that's the loss of a loved one. Now, that's obviously through passing, and that can happen in many different ways. So that can happen from a disease, from old age, from an accident, and there could be lots of others, but generally they're the 3. You die of old age, you're in an accident, or you get sick and you die of a cancer or something similar. So the grief, that depends on how that passing happens. For me, and I lost my mother and my father and lots of good friends, and my mother and father weren't sudden. Like, Mum had cancer, and she passed over. Took 5 years to move from this level to the next, however you want to call it, and she died peacefully in her sleep at 62, so not really old. Maybe 63, can't remember, a long time ago. Anyway, so the grieving for me was relatively easy. We grieved when she was completely with us, in her mind and her body and all that sort of stuff, 6 months before she physically passed. So we grieved then. So when she literally passed, my grieving process was like really, really short. And not that I didn't grieve, I just didn't grieve for a long time. Now, my dad, he didn't take so long. He was older. He was in his 80s, and he passed through old age. He just died of heart failure. And I think everyone dies of a heart attack. Everyone dies of heart failure. It's a silly thing to put on a death certificate because, even if it's illness or an accident or age, what stops you from living is your heart stops pumping. So I would say literally everyone dies of heart failure caused by A, B, and C. So anyway, so Dad died of complete organ failure. He was 9 to 10 days in a coma, and withdrew from a full-length person in the bed and curled up into a ball, just so that the blood wasn't going to his arms and legs to keep them alive. They're trying to preserve the organs. So he lasted for about 9 days in this continually shrinking state back into a fetal position. And when he passed, it was like, oh my God, Dad's dead. Okay, good. Because he's no longer suffering. The stupidity of the medical system when he was passing was, I'm saying to them, like Dad's in pain. You can see it. He's in pain. And they said, we can give him more morphine. I go, well, give him more morphine then. And the doctor said, that may kill him. And I just said, are you serious? Is there any way he's going to recover from this shrinking coma in this state? And he goes, oh, no, he won't recover. So he's going to die anyway, and you don't want to give him morphine to keep him alive longer? How about you just give him the morphine? And the doctor did, to the doctor's credit, but it's a stupid question to ask. There's no recovery from that. He was dying slowly. Give him morphine, speed the process up. I think that's humane. Now, the other grieving, I had a really good friend of mine. I've maybe talked about this before. Not 100% sure. Probably have. But he was in the army. He was a wonderful man. He was young and everything going for him. Had leukemia, and passed away in hospital. And I grieved more for him than I did for my mother and my father, because I believe he was taken too soon. And I believe his life wasn't fully lived. Where my mum and my dad, they were in the ends of their life. Or dad was 80s and mum was probably a little bit too early. But she'd given in. She'd had enough. She was ready to move on. But Andy, he was not ready. Like, in my mind, he was too young. So I grieved longer for him because I believe there was more potential for him than there was for my mum and my dad's sake. So that physical grieving is absolutely normal. The other, and I'll get to the next part of this talk in a second, but just bear those three physical things in mind. And that happens. You lose friends. I've lost, again, a few friends through accidents, cars and motorbikes and, stupid, diving accidents and things like that. But there's the other grieving, which is probably a little bit harder to identify, and that's the emotional grieving. Now that can I don't know where you can put emotional grief. Like, there's so many things that you could say is an emotional grief. So one, I'll just try and run off some as I'm thinking, as I'm going through this conversation with you. You have a good friend that you went to school with, and one day, I don't even know how you bring it in. You say something wrong you didn't mean to say, and all of a sudden they hate you. And that's like, all of a sudden they don't like you anymore, and I don't like you anymore. And you grieve their loss. So that's a grieving of the loss. Now, that loss is a minor death, right? I don't mean death or, any other sort of death. It's a death of a relationship. So you go, I lost a really good friend. I'm now grieving. I'm sad because of the loss. I had a good friend and I don't know what I did, but now I'm no longer with that friend, and there's a death of that relationship. So therefore, grieving will occur. Now, that can be for loss of a pet, I said a friend, a work in a job. You had a really good job. You really enjoyed your job. You got up every morning, be excited to go to your job, and one day the job's no longer there, and you're grieving because you were sacked, or the business went broke and they couldn't employ you anymore, and you're grieving the loss. That again is a death of an experience. It's like, not literally, of course. I'm going to keep saying this because stupid people out there and Facegram, TikTok thing will go, oh my God, he said dead and death. It's nothing like that. It's like, it is a death of a job or a thing, and then you grieve that. Now, the other ways that these can come into occurrence is we'll use a marriage or that sort of relationship, because it's probably better to put this example into that. Two people are married, and they, one or both perceive they're happily married, and one party starts to feel a little, I don't know, I'm a little bored. It's not what I expected it to be. The person's not loving me the way I want her to love me. I'm not content anymore. Now, the other party's not anywhere apprised and is knowing what's going on. They're just living their life and really content. But one of them, I'm not going to say what gender that or sex that one is, because that's irrelevant, because it happens to both sides. But one side generally does it more than the other, and you can do the research yourself to find out which side that is. But the side when it ends, the person who ends it has ended the relationship long before the relationship physically ends. They've started a grieving process already. Now, they know that their partner doesn't meet their requirements anymore, can't love them the way they want to be loved, and doesn't accept that the partner loves them the best way they can and gives them everything they can. They just go, well, it's not what I want. It's not loving me the way I want to be loved, so I'm not happy. I'm going to end the relationship. And that person who does that starts the grieving process long before the partner does. So what that pretty much says is they've grieved up to the point of physical separation. They've physically done that grieving. So when it comes time to separate, and that person goes, look, I'm done, relationship's over, it's not working anymore, irreconcilable differences, let's go our separate ways, They've grieved, they've moved on, they can find another partner almost the next day because they've already done that grieving process, right? Now, the other one who's gone, oh my God, it's over, they then start their grieving process. But whereas the first one grieved with a partner and eased their grieving process, the one who now has to grieve grieves alone. And the grieving time becomes different. So, moving now into the second part of the conversation is the responsibility. And I mean the responsibility of grief and how and where you choose to take your grief. So, as back to the physical death experiences, I grieved longer for my friend Andy and his, what I believed, unfair death because it was too early, was longer than the grief for my mother and my father. But they all three have given me a wonderful experience on the process of grief and how I can own where I take grief and how long I want to grieve the loss of something through whatever, what would have been talking about. So at the end of the day, even if it's a physical death, a loss of a loved one, you're going to get over it. Like, that is just 100% guaranteed if you allow the grief to be as it is and then let it go when it should be let go. Now, you can maintain this grief for as long as you like, but that's your responsibility. So if after 2 years I'm still crying every time I speak about my mother or Andy or my dad or other friends I've lost, then that's my choice. Now, I'm choosing to do that. That's my responsibility to maintain the grief. We hear it all the time. What would your mother wish you to do? And of course, my mother would wish me to get the fuck over it and not grieve anymore. Dad would be exactly the same. Andy, and I've told this story, I'm sure, I felt from him after he passed a spirit energy kick me in the ass and go, get over it. So I was over him, not really quickly, but a lot quicker than I could be because I understand now the spiritual grieving process. Now, the loss of an emotional thing, that again can be different too. So the loss of a friend, the loss of a relationship where it ends all of a sudden and you don't know, that's hard to do. Now, what also can create this is when people explode in conversation and then it's like, duh, it's over. And then both parties are grieving dynamically different, but they're grieving alone without the other person that they're grieving. Their grievance is against is with them. So that you see a lot of that in, I guess mainly it's in families, isn't it? You know, it's someone in the family does something so heinous to the other that one just walks away. And that's, again, responsibility on what is heinous to one may not be to the other. And, you know, you want to hope that you know the family member well enough to know where that goes. But grief can go on forever. So you see a lot in the movies, and it's frustrating as hell to me. A man is in an accident and the wife says, oh my God, the last thing I said to you was like, pull your finger out and get the job done. I didn't tell him I loved him when he went to work. And then that woman, in this case, would grieve a lot longer because she feels guilty for not being kind and or nice. But again, it's still her responsibility. She can go, that was such bad luck. I loved him so much, but, you know, it happened. You know, what do you do? I'm not happy that he's gone, but I'm not going to grieve forever because it's not what he would want. And that's where you own your grief. And you can choose to take it for 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years, the rest of your life. That is your responsibility. No one in your circle wants you to grieve. No one in your circle wants you to grieve too long. Happy for you to grieve a little bit and understand the dynamic. When it's a physical grief, you can get over that because you know you're not going to see the person again. And that's fine. You accept that in your heart and you move on. The grief and the loss of a job or an acquaintance, yeah, you can grieve that for the same reason because you're not going to go back to it and you get over it. The grief of a family member loss can be forever because you know at some point you've got to get back to that point. Now, if pride gets in the way or ego gets in the way or whatever else gets in the way and you choose not to do that, then that again is your responsibility. Now, if one party makes an effort and every time that party makes an effort you keep slapping the hand away, then that's your responsibility as well. And for the person who's always reaching the hand out, at some point they take responsibility and they will stop reaching the hand. So grief is such an amazing thing, and it's a matter of where you go to do it. So in the example of husband and wife who want to solve the problem, one starts to grieve and wants to separate, the other one recognizes something's wrong and has a conversation, and the first one realizes they don't really want to leave. They start working together in a common ground and they adjust, then they can move forward. The problem with that type of relationship, neither party knows how to read the other's mind. So, and one will say, well, I didn't know that was happening. And the first will say, well, why didn't you know? Well, because the second one goes, well, I don't know. You didn't tell me. I shouldn't have to tell you. Guys, you actually should. You should tell. And the same would be for any other type of relationships. Brother, sister, whether the brother does something stupid and the sister does something stupid and the brother keeps reaching or the sister keeps reaching and the brother slaps away or whatever, they keep slapping away. But they're still there. They've got to fix that up. They've got to bring that together. But if one keeps going and the other keeps slapping, this one will stop doing it now, and this one's got to do a lot more work to come back. And that's the nature of grief, in my mind. So bear that in mind with everything. Understand the responsibility of grief is yours and yours alone. If you feel you've done bad by someone or they've done bad by you, maybe be the better person and have a conversation about it. If you go and start the conversation and they slap your hand, let it go for a little while. Go back again in a week, in a month, 6 months or a year. If they keep slapping your hand, the time will come when you will not reach again. And I guarantee you that the person who you have reached to has slapped your hand away, they are always going to blame you. Always going to be your fault. And that's okay. You've done the work. You've done the reaching. You've done everything you need to do. Let them blame you, because that's absolutely fine. Right? They'll get over it. And you'll be the bigger, better person for it. Anywho, that's it. Hopefully a short one. I don't know where that went. But just remember, take responsibility and own your shit. Right? Or if you don't like the word shit, put it for stuff. That's TRAYOS. Take responsibility and own. That's OYS. Can't even say myself. Take responsibility and own your stuff. And then everything else is easy. Grief becomes reduced. You know you've put everything in. That's where you can go. Anyway, on that note, remember this. And simply because I haven't found another ending to this other than, guys, enjoy your journey. Everything you do, take responsibility for. Own whatever you can, even stuff you don't think you can. And always be good.